I began music at age 5. My parents started me on violin because they determined that I was naturally gifted in music. Because my father, who was an opera singer at the time, and he studied opera, had a teacher himself, and practiced his lessons in the house. The story goes that as a baby of like 2, 3 years old, I would imitate him in phonetic Italian because of some of the songs he sang were Italian songs that he practiced. So I sang them, and I even remember one of them. Si tra I ceppi aleri tolte la mia feri splenderà. I hadn't sung that in 50, 60 years. That song is stuck with me. It was one of the things that I sang as a baby because my dad sang it. So they gave me violin lessons, and fortunate it was for me that I got those lessons because I was prepared by the greatest education that it was possible to imagine at a time when music was core. My training was correct, taught by loving teachers that wanted to help me to become a better violinist. So I began in 1958 on Saturday morning at 9:30 a.m. I was 5 years old. I remember this. I don't remember what day, unfortunately. I'm not that smart. So that's how I did it. I started on violin at age 5. When I was a boy, I lived in Great Neck, New York, and had gotten into the Beatles and got into the Hendrix and got into Cream. And the very first amp that I ever bought in order to be able to play the bass lines of these groups was an Ampeg B15. But it was an older version at that time of the Ampeg B15 because a bass player friend of mine named Seth Kimball, who turned out to be actually one of the mainstay bass players in Las Vegas, played with Louis Prima, he played all the shows years later. He had the newer version, and he was kind enough as students, as kids in school, to loan me his amp because my amp kept distorting. So his amp was the newer one. It had a great sound. I recall the early 1967-68 B15, and because he was my hero, my high school hero, junior high school and high school hero, I got the B15 because Seth played through one. Oh boy, I've had many exciting moments in music. It's hard to pinpoint them all. I certainly, from a point of exposure to the world, have to say that my travels opened me up to many new things. Those were some of the most exciting things, to end up in new countries, meeting people, enjoying the new cultures, the food, playing in front of new audiences. The experience of travel was exciting, still is to me, I gotta say. When I travel, I'm very happy to go to some place and just be a part of where I am going. So I always look forward to touring. I mean, with COVID, it's limiting now, but and another thing I have to say is recording, because when I would obviously plug into the desk and heard the bass back, it was an exciting thing for me. And my early recording experiences were done ad hoc, whatever I felt like doing, and I learned from that to where I finally arrived to a place where my playing is specific and the tone is great these days. And I have to say, it was the live playing that was some of the most exciting things for me. Goodness, I won a couple of awards as #1 bass player. That was an honor. Jamming with all the guys I played with, the playing element, I would say, in the variety of ways I've done it, these are the most special and exciting things. To this day, I still feel like I'm 20 when I play along with people. Well, I'll certainly say with Bill Bruford and with Alan Holdsworth, these seem to be the two collaborations that I'm most known for. Bill, of course, was the drummer with Yes and with King Crimson and with Genesis, and he wanted to do a solo career. And we had met, and I played, and we played, and we got together. That experience certainly was one of the great collaborations for me. I learned so much from Bill. In fact, I owe him his wisdom and his experience to take me in as a relatively inexperienced guy who could play notes but inexperienced. And by being with him, a lot opened up for me, and a lot was learned by me. And with Alan also. Alan is one of those remarkably odd and amazing self-taught, odd, brilliant visioned musicians. He wasn't a guitarist. He was more than that. And our time together, we were very good friends, and we shared a lot of musical thought and ideas, and we toured quite a bit. I've also toured and played with a lot of guys. My time with John McLaughlin was really an exciting time. Billy Cobham, of course. So I was privy to the great fusion musicians. And in my career, that was a great portion of it. So having affiliated and played and toured and recorded with these great musicians, these were, I would say, my best and most, I guess, the collaborations I'm most known for. I found Mark Bass by accident. For years, I've had the great good fortune of bass amp companies, all of whom, by the way, built wonderful equipment and were kind enough to invite me to try out their gear. And the difficulty for me is I couldn't quite find an amp with the tone that I personally envisioned. So one time I'm in Rome, I'm doing a gig with my band, and the club provided 3 or 4 amps, and I went, just trying them out. Whenever I would do a gig, I would use whatever, because I didn't accept an endorsement. I felt it might not be honest to go with a company merely to get something out of it. It's people that know me know that my criteria is based in honesty completely. So I was okay. I didn't have an amp company. So I'm going through the amps. There's Mark Bass. I plug in, and instantly, and I remember this even now, that the tone surprised me. I said, my goodness, I'd not heard this before. Standing off to the side is a Mark Bass dealer or distributor who caught my reaction, and he wrote to the head of Mark Bass, Marco DeVirgilis, and said, Jeff liked that amp a lot. So Marco sent me an email and said, would you like to try one of our amps? So I said yes. He sends me an amp. It's a 15. It's this 15, not this one, but this 15 line. But the one he sent me had a tweeter in it. Anyway, I take it out of the box and I plug it in. I start to play. And without touching any of the knobs, the tone was breathtaking. I mean, I was stunned. And I don't need 2 hours to test and to try. I knew what I was listening to was exactly what I always heard in me. So I put the bass down, I sent him an email, and I said, please let me be a part of Mark Bass. And at the time, Mark Bass was a small regional company in Italy. Now it's international and one of the biggest bass amp and other equipment companies in the world. But when I got to them, it was a Mama e Papa company in Pescara, Italy. And Marco says, I'll build you anything. What do you want? I'll build it. I don't care what it is. I said, take this amp that came off your assembly line. Just take out the tweeter. I'm not fond of tweeter sounds. And send me this. So what you see here has been fairly well my entire rack, or rig, I guess, rig of amps that I've used since I had the great good fortune of getting with Mark Bass. He put my name on it, but it's an amp right off his assembly line. I didn't build or design it. He just knew how to build an amp that made me thrilled. I should add that not only do I use the Jeff Berlin model, but I more often record with the Players School bass amp. Actually, I'm just finishing mixing Jack Bruce, my latest record with producer John McCracken. And when we were doing basses, we used the Players School 15-inch amp because the tone had a slightly different flavor for recording than my amp did. This is the amps that I use for live playing, but I noticed that there was something in the tone when John would take a line out of the amp and add a bass track. So the bass tone on Jack Bruce is, I'm sorry I'm going to be this blunt, the best of my career, and in a great reason it's because of the Players School amp. That is a very easy question to answer. What makes Mark Bass special, and the people in Mark Bass know that I'm telling the truth, is that I have a great love for some of the people that work at Mark Bass. I've known them for years, and together we have become brothers and sisters. That being with these people, by associating with these people, there is a real joy there. It was a coincidence. It wasn't planned. It's an organic thing where these wonderful, marvelous people became very important to me. So when I go to Italy and I go to Mark Bass, one of the greatest pleasures of that company is that I'm going to see some of these people, have dinner with them, spend time with them. They've taken my wife, Gabby, as one of their own. Gabby loves them. They love Gabby. It's truly a wonderful, affectionate interaction between us. That's, other than the gear, that's what makes my relationship with Mark Bass so special.